This is Behind Closed Deals.
We'll be chatting with multifamily maestros,
Uncovering their strategies
and unraveling the latest market happenings.
Bringing you intel you can't buy. Hello, and welcome to Behind Closed Deals. I am Hannah Ott with CBRE, and also joining me from CBRE is George Tikajan, and we're very excited to have Thompson Thrift with us here today.
Good afternoon. Thompson Thrift is an Indianapolis-based developer of multifamily, mixed-use, and retail properties. They are well known for very high-quality residential product, and they have been a very good client of ours, so we're excited to have them today. And we've got three of the executives of Thompson Thrift with us today. So I'd like to introduce you to Aimee O'Conner, who is the Chief Operating Officer. Aimee runs operations for Thompson Thrift. And also with us is Dave Englert. Dave is the Vice President of Investment, and he oversees dispositions, land acquisitions, and certain developments in the middle part of the country. And then finally, we have with us Josh Purvis, who is the Managing Director of Residential. So he runs the entire residential multifamily operations for Thompson Thrift. So with that, Josh, we'd love to hear you give us a little bit of background on Thompson Thrift, and then Dave and Aimee give us some background on yourselves.
Yeah, all right. Well, thanks, George. Thanks, Hannah. Appreciate you guys having us on. So tracing back to the beginnings of Thompson Thrift, it really goes back, I believe, about 40 years now. 1986 was the official start of Thompson Thrift, but the relationship between John and Paul go back even before that, when Paul and John were actually both in high school, and John was actually starting to be a freshman at Indiana State University, and Paul was still a senior in Terre Haute. They started buying houses kind of through the S&L days, so they were able to go buy houses on the cheap, throw some money in, get those ready, and then would sell those on contract, mostly in Terre Haute and parts of eastern Illinois. They did a good number of those deals, and kind of got, according to one of the bankers, a little overextended, which Paul would say, kind of scratch his head and be like, "What are you talking about? We are, cash flowing. We're doing great." And they were obviously very young at the time, so they took those homes and then sold those and used that as seed money to build a student housing deal right next to campus at Indiana State University in Terre Haute. At that time, John was a junior at Indiana State and Paul was a sophomore. So not sure what all of you were doing when you were a sophomore and junior in college, but I know I was not hanging trusses on my first ever multifamily deal. So that's them. That's how they're
George
wired.
was doing keg stands, just to be clear.
Yeah. Some things never change for George.
Wait a minute. Now, Josh, you were a broker too at one time, so we know you were doing the same thing.
That's right. Yeah. Very short stint. Yes, that's right. So they built that community over in Terre Haute. They lived there for a time, actually, while they were going to Indiana State University, and then over time, as they started growing, the construction company, as well as the kind of retail development. They were building some other smaller multifamily deals in Indiana and Eastern Illinois. They started taking over units in that community, and it became offices for a growing company. So you talk about bathtubs that were filing cabinets and all these cool things looking back then. So they outgrew that. Obviously, it was time to grow up, grow out. So they got an office. They sold Sycamore Place, and when they did that, they used that as kind of seed money to start kind of the next venture, which was the retail development company. So they partnered with a guy named O.J. Stocker, OJ worked for a couple different kind of nationwide franchises. They helped grow that. OJ helped grow that side of the business with John and Paul. Brought Ashley Boyd in, who became kind of managing partner and ran that along with OJ and Paul. And then so from there, they continued the construction business. Kept growing, flourishing. They were building, mostly in Indiana as well. And then 2007, 8, Paul started looking at some of the pro formas and some of the retail deals, and we're kind of looking at these like, man, these aren't penciling. We need to kind of find another way, to kind of be more of a four season type development real estate company. Started the multifamily business about that time in kind of 07, 08. I came over in October of 08. It was, a really great opportunity for us to come over at that time. Obviously, John and Paul maintained the construction company, so they had that, which was a huge advantage. We broke ground on our first deal as, at the time, it was Watermark Residential, in I think 2010. And since that date, we've done, I believe, a little over 85. So for early in our business, we were very busy in Texas. We did, I believe, 13 deals, 12 in Houston, 1 in Corpus Christi. And then we moved kind of to Colorado, where we've done now, I believe, around 15 deals that we started. And then Florida has been very active for us as well recently, which I believe we're around that same number, around 13 or 14 that we started in Florida as well. So today we operate as 3 different operating companies. We have the residential development group, which George introduced us as Thompson Thrift Residential. We have Thompson Thrift Commercial Group, which focuses on mostly grocery anchored retail, as well as some mixed use and industrial, where we've started 2 industrial deals out in Phoenix. And then we have the construction company that builds 100% of what Thompson Thrift Residential develops, and only builds what we develop. So they don't have any third-party clients anymore. And then we also have in-house management that falls under the development company. So that's kind of where we are today. We're very active right now. So it's still a very exciting time for us.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Dave, why don't you describe what your role is, what your background is?
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm coming up on 25 years in the multifamily space, having started out on the West Coast and then moving back to Indiana. I did find a home here at Thompson Thrift back in 2014, so I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary here. My start here at Thompson Thrift really came from the land acquisition side, so I was responsible for getting out into communities, basically that bridged Minneapolis over to Pittsburgh, all points in between. So basically trying to get in front of sellers and cities to put together the front end of deals and negotiate land contracts in order to develop on. And then the last 2 years, I've been in this the new role of kind of when we're come up on a pinch point on a project and we're nearing stabilization, we have a decision to make internally on whether we're going to take out that construction loan, or we're gonna expose the asset to the marketplace and sell. So I'm at that decision point, and I'm working with not just those regions I described on the acquisition side, but across the whole country now on that front.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Aimee, why don't you tell us your background and role there at Thompson Thrift?
Sure. So like Dave, I started in 2014, but I was on the community management side from the beginning, and that is my entire career until last year was all community management. But last year switched over to COO for Thompson Thrift Development, which covers the commercial and the residential side of the business. So been hitting that 10-year mark here soon with Thompson Thrift.
That's great. That's awesome. So we've had the opportunity to work with you guys, I think, on 4 transactions. So Dave, when you get to that point where you're trying to refinance or sell, we're generally leaning on you for the sale. Communicating why that makes sense for you guys. Josh, one last thing about your background. based on your voice on the podcast, you must have done radio at some point. It's either you've got a very Casey Kasem vibe but it's something that you can do in the future, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. I've been told I have a face for radio, but not necessarily a voice for radio. So yeah.
Nice. Well, we have loved working with you guys. Like I said, we've been fortunate to transact with you, and one of the things that we have loved is experiencing your culture. George's daughter actually works at Thompson Thrift, and so she can speak to it from a day-to-day basis. But we love the culture that you guys have and have a very team-centric model. And I've heard a story that Paul or that will go around and ask people for the mission of Thompson Thrift. Is that right? And maybe he'll give $100 for that.
That's right.
What is the mission of Thompson Thrift?
Yeah, to positively influence our team members and the communities we serve.
I love it. Well, that probably speaks to culture. So, Aimee, talk to us a little bit about culture and how you guys attract talent, train talent, and retain talent to keep that strong company culture there.
Yeah, Hannah, that's a hot topic right now. Finding talent is really hard these days. It's very competitive. I think it's a challenge that we talk about every day, creating a culture, but keeping the culture within the team members that we have. We do a lot and show a lot on social media. What you see on social media is really what happens at Thompson Thrift, from the bake-offs to the clay shoots and we're very intentional on creating an environment that is about the team and engagement for that team. So we do intentional work behind that, and there's a lot of planning and working to make that happen. But it is a challenge. I mean, we have to focus on it all the time to make sure that it is top of mind and that our team members are being heard. And when they ask for something, that we respond. Doesn't mean they get it, but that we respond and we've thought about it and give our team members what they need to be successful.
That's great. What aspects of culture that you guys have created are you guys most proud of at Thompson Thrift?
Well, I think our mission statement, we're all really proud of our mission statement because it is who we are. So it's very intentional in the wording of our mission statement. We've placed team members before the communities because we place a higher ranking on our team members. But community is just as important. And so I think that's a big thing. One thing that's not talked about as often is how much of an entrepreneurial group we have at Thompson Thrift. Everyone is always, being creative and striving for the next big thing. And I think that plays a lot into the success because we allow our team members to have that mindset and strive for more and make it fun and creative and challenging.
That's great. George, let's talk about product development.
Yeah, so we have, as Hannah mentioned, we've been involved in selling 3 or 4 of your communities, and it's ranged from big house product to mixed use with retail to now SFR. So, Josh, Dave, what is your product mix? Who decides what to build where, and how does that work? How does that creative process work from a design standpoint?
Yeah. So right now we have 5 different product types that we build. We have kind of a single story villa product that we built up in Fishers, Indiana. It's under construction now, actually just ending construction. We have a 3-story 3 and 4 bedroom attached garage townhome, which those 2 products kind of make up our BFR or BTR product that we do. And then we have a 2-story product. So it's, walk in your front door, you're in your unit, you're either on the ground floor, so you walk straight in, or up a flight of stairs that is conditioned up to your unit, which is our select product. And then we have what we call our classic, which is more your 3-story garden style, but we enclose those corridors for a number of reasons. But we do enclose those, which is not very typical in a lot of the markets that we see right now. And then we have our 4-story metro, I guess it can be 3 or 4 story, but we mostly build it as just 4-story elevator, double corridor, courtyard buildings, which is what we built at the Mark at Fisher's District, which is the product that we use mostly in that vertically integrated mixed use product that we do. So even though it is mixed use, it's still one of our kind of standard products, which is the Metro. And then, so you asked also how we decide that. We leave that. So we have 2 different development teams. We have one kind of focus in the West. They also cover the Midwest as well. And then one in the Southeast, which is we have, a senior VP of development, which is in charge of that whole region. Then they have an acquisition and development team that works on that same team. So that acquisitions team really goes in and works with development, what can we get entitled? What can we get permitted? And then, okay, that kind of narrows it down, kind of to start. And then once you have like your product types that you can use, then it's which one makes the most sense economically, right? In this region, the Southeast team, for instance, really likes building that 2-story select product. They feel like they can get, they have larger land sites, they can fit that product on there. The cost is not that much different than our classic product. And so they really like to use that as much as possible. Whereas in the West, they're doing a lot more of that 3-story classic stuff.
Partially, I assume, because of land costs in some areas require higher density.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so do you have, I think the Villa style is your newest product. Do you see, you want to let us in on any secrets, kind of like Apple, any future product that you see coming up, and what product in the next couple of years, how it might evolve with costs and the economics and demographics?
Yeah. So right now, all development is really a math equation, right? It's, what rent can you get? What's it cost to build? What's it cost to operate? And then does the math compute at the end of the day? And frankly, right now, it's really, really, really difficult to find stuff that works. We have costs that have gone up tremendously. We've seen operating costs go up tremendously, property taxes, obviously insurance, and the whole country, especially in some of the parts that we're in down in the Southeast. So what we're looking at now, and we're actually working to develop, is more of an attainable product where we can go to communities that have a real lack of housing, and there's a huge disparity in the affordability from apartments, especially market rate stuff, up to owning single family. So that's something that we're working on right now with a couple of different sites.
So maybe a little more workforce. Are you thinking about any sort of modular product, or are you going to cities and towns asking for incentives to help support the costs of building a more attainable product?
Yeah, you can ask all you want. And developers talk about getting it. And then when you start really digging in, not many are getting it for that product type. You can get it, certain communities that we've been able to get it, but it's very few and far between. You're more likely to be able to, do a mixed use deal and get some TIF and give them that commercial or that retail office, hotel maybe, of what they really want, and cities will cooperate with that. But as far as the workforce, these communities say they want it, they'll incentivize it, and then you get in and they won't incentivize it, and half of them don't even really want it. So it's difficult. It really is. But you look to kind of pull out some on the cost side of things, and then that also has a big impact a lot of times as you kind of reduce your amenities. Maybe you're removing your spa, doing a smaller pool, less landscaping, those sorts of things. Then it helps your operating cost as well, which is the big one, right? Because that's, as you throw a cap rate on those savings on the operating, then that has a bigger impact than even most of the cost savings issues. One of the things a lot of the developers that are doing that attainable or workforce product are struggling to get assessors to kind of understand the valuations on that stuff, because they're still, treating it as a new construction. So you're not getting, or most times you're not getting any real break on the property taxes.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, one more question before I turn it over to Hannah to talk about the capital side, but there are local Indiana-based audience. Can you talk about what you're doing, what you're doing in Fishers with the slate and the next property after that? So, because you've got, and then with the skating rink and the whole development up there.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. It's been really exciting. Obviously, to do that kind of a development anywhere, let alone to be able to do it in your backyard, is just really cool. Been a really nice thing for our whole company to be able to celebrate. But yeah, we originally did Fishers District, which was, I believe, a little over 100,000 square foot of retail. It had 260 apartment homes. Then it had 585 space parking garage. We sold the back lot off to a hotel developer who developed the hotel, but we were responsible for developing kind of everything else. And then we had kind of a phase 2 where we did our villa and luxe or townhome product just south of that. So it connects, abuts up to it, connects directly to, I think, Dave, 242 units or.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that is going really well. I'm really proud of that project. It looks tremendous if you're able to go up and take a look at it. So, and then we have, we were kind of master developer, Thompson Thrift, and really our commercial group, Ashley Boyd and his team on the event center further to the south that kind of wraps around the forum headquarters up there. And then we are now working in design on a new phase up in Fishers that will have some additional retail. Some of those, as we've seen success in Fishers District, we've had some really, big and good names, retailers and restaurateurs who are really wanting to locate up there. So the next lineup, I think, is really exciting. There'll be a hotel up there as well, more of a full service hotel is the plan right now, and then office building, and then our apartments as well. So it's really exciting, to be able to see that whole thing grow. Fishers has been, a tremendous partner in helping us, get kind of the best out of design and, weighing in and kind of being a real partner with us at the table. So we're very thankful for that relationship.
Great, well, thank you. Well, speaking of office building, so Hannah, talk about, why don't you ask them about capital and how they're raising capital? Building an office building can't be easy today.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, as a Fishers resident for more than 15 years, I can tell you that I'm so grateful for what you guys have done there. It's really changed the experience for me personally, as someone who lives in Fishers, that there's now great restaurant and retail options in my backyard without having to go downtown or Carmel or Broad Ripple. And I actually find I go to those places a lot less and just stay closer to home and utilize everything that you guys have added there at the yard. It's really a fantastic amenity for everybody who lives both at those communities and then in the area at large. So thank you for doing that. Thanks for doing that for me.
We did it just for you, Hannah.
That's what I thought.
So they originally started as, it was just a retail deal, and retail was down the path and they were about ready to start construction. And then, Ashley Boyd had a meeting, I believe at Ironworks or somewhere, and he walked out of that meeting and looked over and was like, man, that's an impressive development. But if you don't have that multifamily on top of Ironworks, then it's just kind of a glorified strip center, right? It just has a different look and feel. So, he kind of came to us and said, hey, what if we, hit pause on all the design and added some multifamily to this? So then we did that and delayed start of construction, I believe about a year to get through all of that and kind of started everything. So, and it would look a lot different today, right? And have a lot different energy if it didn't have that multifamily on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
And the retail is probably the primary amenity for the multifamily. I mean, it's a hopping place. That place is packed every day. So the retail has been a big benefit for the multifamily.
Yeah. For sure.
We were fortunate to work with you guys on that. And what we always told people is that you really should control both. Buyers had the opportunity to buy them separately, but they should control both. And I told this story the other day to JVM because they were in town looking at another property. And we toured the property, and the main principal from JVM who ended up buying that property was not planning to buy the retail at all. But we toured the apartment community. We came out, we were going to have lunch at a nearby retail. And I literally just saw it on his face that he was like, okay, this retail activates the multifamily and the multifamily activates the retail. And they felt very strongly that they needed to have both. And so it's neat that by experiencing that, by Ashley Boyd experiencing that at Ironworks, and then by a prospective buyer actually experiencing that, you see the connection and the synergy of having both of them. So it really is, as George said, it's a very energized space, and they really feed each other. So that, I think you guys made the right decision to make that, to have that delay.
You remember when we were marketing that too, Dave always says this, but I think he really means it on Fisher's. You have to get buyers there. They have to see it. They have to experience it. They have to see it, feel it, especially because it is always busy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's just a different feel than what it looks like on paper.
That's right.
Definitely.
That's right. Well, so one of the things that's changed over the years, the amount of equity that is required in these development deals. Back in the good old days, you could get away with a lower amount of equity in doing development, but that's not as much the case anymore. So having the ability to have access to equity, having a fund, being able to raise capital is so important. And you guys have done very well at that. I know we'd love to hear a little bit about the performance of your funds and how well they have done. But tell us about how you raise capital and a little bit about your fund structure.
Yeah, so when I started my tenure here, it was quite different at that point in time. We were really doing a lot of one-off deals. We would come up on a deal and there would be an equity requirement at that point in time. And Paul and others would have resources to go to. As we progressed and started putting more shovels in the ground every year, we came upon 2016. That was the first really formal fund that we put together. I think at the time, Josh, it was 3 deals, but I think it evolved to 4 maybe.
Yeah, it was 3. And then we had like kind of some leftover capital, went back to those folks and said, hey, there's a 4th deal that we really like. And yeah, they funded that one kind of outside the fund, but it was still the same kind of equity.
Yeah, and that kind of was the precipice for what now is an annual fundraising effort that we put forward. That started in 2020 and continues on through 2024. So basically, the year before we start developments, we have a pretty good understanding of what our pipeline looks like, and we also have a pretty good understanding of the probability of those deals in that pipeline, what the success ratio is going to be for getting through the entitlement process and the permitting process. And so we select the deals that we feel most confident about, package them up, and then put out a memorandum asking for equity contributions for deals that will then be that next year out. And the structure of those deals is pretty straightforward. There's a preferred return that accrues during the course of development, and then a waterfall structure after that.
So this is easy for me to do. It's not as easy for other people. I wanted to brag a little bit. Tell us a little bit about some of the returns that you have delivered back to your investors historically, both maybe on specific deals, if you want to talk about that, or on the fund overall.
Yeah, I think Josh mentioned it earlier. We're coming up, if we're not at 85, we're coming up on number 85. And of those 85, we run full cycle on 42 projects. And the average IRR on those is just north of 33%.
Wow.
I don't know if it's, if we want to get into the specifics of particular deals, but of those 80 plus starts, we're talking about 17 states, and coming from the brokerage world and looking into the development world, you may not be as familiar with how difficult it is to break into a new state. That's an extremely difficult thing. And the company, and Paul in particular, and those beneath, continue to lean into where the economics make sense and where the trends make sense for us as a company. So it's good to be part of that, because it allows for continued growth and allows people to continue to take an opportunistic look at not just the markets we performed in, but others. So yeah, the 17 states, that involves over 21,000 units as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it wouldn't be fair if we didn't talk about the good and the bad, but I'm going to let George talk about the bad. So tell us about some challenges. George, ask us about some of their challenges.
Well, it's not necessarily bad. It's using creativity to solve some problems. So,
That's right. Yeah,
right,
that's
right
right.
now, the two primary issues for developers are high construction costs and high financing costs. So, a deal that you maybe started working on 2 or 3 years ago, because I know it's a pretty long lead time, the costs have gone up and the financing costs have gone up. So, how do you deal with a long timeline for development and changing circumstances within that time frame? So how have you dealt with these rising costs and financing costs?
Yeah, so the financing costs kind of hit you more on stuff that's already started, right? So in each of our development budgets, we have a line item that carries construction interest. So then we use that line item to pay for that loan fees as things are going on. So we cushion that and pad it, but no one saw, or not many saw, I guess. I don't know who did see rates going to where they are now, where most of our construction interest rates are in the 8% range. So that line item, if we were starting today, is more than doubled on new development. So that's the first one. And the way you really best overcome that is really operationally. You just have to get better operationally. It's kind of the heads and beds strategy, holding your pro forma rents, trying to push those as much as you can, but really just getting income started to cover that as quickly as you can. But that's a real struggle. And then as far as new developments, kind of what we're looking at right now, honestly, we're not very creative on the debt and equity side of things. We are really a developer, a contractor, and a manager that really has the approach that if you have to get too creative to make a deal work, then the deal just doesn't work. So, I was at a conference last week hearing developers talk about signing up for, mezz and pref at 15.5% and 16.5%. And guys are like, wow, that's pretty good. That's not too bad. And that to me is salty. So I mean, to get into that, so for us, we try to avoid that. We've done some mezz in the past, but when we did it, it was 10%, 11% maybe. So a little bit less cost of that capital. And then just purely on the development side, our whole industry, especially, kind of if you consider yourself an A+ developer of multifamily assets, we over-designed everything, right? We are over-designing our interior finishes, exteriors, amenities, and rents were going up 15-20%. Cap rates were historically low, and people just kind of got loose with it. So we took about 9 months ago, a year ago, and went in and said, okay, what can we take out and still deliver an excellent product? And so our design teams, our acquisitions team, and development teams all kind of sat in, and we went through each and every project and just said, okay, where can we pull dollars out today that when we go visit that project when it opens in 2 years, that we don't feel it, that we don't see it, that we're still delivering excellence, but that we're pulling those dollars out now. So I can tell you, I think we averaged like a little over, I think like a $2 million that we save per project. So probably $8,000 to $10,000 per unit that we pulled out just being a lot more conscientious of that.
And so most people, your consumer wouldn't see that 8,000 to 10,000 per unit difference in the customer experience. Is that
correct? Yeah, and some of it, in parts of the Southeast, you'll go visit projects, for example, and you'll see they don't do hot tubs down there as much as they do Arizona. They're popular. Colorado, they're popular, but in the Southeast, they're just not as popular. Even go to like a street lights development in Midtown Atlanta. no hot tub, right? It's just not a popular amenity. So we started just being just more selective and conscientious on what we were putting into each deal. So yeah, that's the goal, right? That's the goal, is that we show up and that we go visit one of our communities and we can't tell a difference if it happened before that kind of VE step or after that VE step, and it's still the same product.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, on top of that, George, I'd also add in, this is less on something that we control, but we also try to communicate effectively with our sellers on the land side in order for them to understand the dynamics that are going on in the current the marketplace. A lot of times sellers are the kind of the last ones to realize that. So we've attempted to become more cognizant of how much we're spending on the land side as well.
Gotcha. Okay. What markets are you building in 2024? And then I don't know if 25, 26, where do you see, what markets do you see opportunities in the next group of developments?
Yeah, it's no, surprise, I'm sure, but it's a lot of the smile states in the markets, like, in the Sun Belt. We're still very active in Colorado, still very active in Florida. We broke ground last year for our first deal in Georgia. We hope to do a couple more deals in Georgia, one in Savannah, another one outside of Atlanta. We're breaking into hopefully a new market in Idaho, right outside of Boise. So that's an exciting one for us as well. And then we have another large kind of mixed use deal that we're hoping to be able to start in Phoenix, later this year, potentially. So it'll be similar to the Yard. It'll have a grocery anchor to it, but a little bit more retail and 40 more units on that. So really kind of sticking to our same thing. We still love Midwest markets as well. They're harder kind of to make pencil, but it's kind of the steady Eddie. I'd love to be able to find, 1 or 2 deals a year that we could do. We have a deal that we're looking to close next year in Kansas City, Kansas. So that'll be a great one for us too. Kansas is a new state. We've done Kansas City before, but on the Missouri side of the line. So really just kind of the same of what we have been doing.
So some of the smile states, we read about that they've been overbuilt. So are you timing some of the projects that you just mentioned in markets that maybe have a lot of development beyond to deliver units beyond the surge of current deliveries, or are you picking submarkets that aren't as overbuilt as in others in some of these rapidly growing markets?
Yeah, that's exactly it for us. It's, every market has a sub-market that's going to be underserved at some level, right? Either their demand is so high that it's exceeding the supply, or the supply is just so low. I remember when we first went into Texas, we started looking at our first Houston deal in 2009. So, the story was, Houston was way overbuilt. There's no way you can get anything done in Houston. And, at the time, I think Houston was around 6 million people, which is about the size of the state of Indiana. And we kind of said to ourselves, you wouldn't say the whole state of Indiana is dead, right? You just have to go work hard in Houston and find the right story in the right submarket, and then be able to tell that story to investors and to bankers, and to kind of get that deal done. And we were able to successfully do that. It took us a long time to get, a Texas deal done. And once we broke that seal, and then we did 13 deals down there in Texas. So yeah, I think that's the story for us. Is there may be, we do market rankings every year to where we kind of take a whole set of data points and we put them in, and it spits out the end kind of ranks them. I think we do 200 markets is what we rank, and what that does for us is it kind of shows us where you should be going. It kind of highlights some overlooked markets. I remember when we first started doing it, like Omaha, Nebraska popped up. We first started doing it 15 plus years ago, and we weren't looking at Omaha. after it popped up for the second or third year in a row, we started looking in Omaha. When I was at a former company, and then we did a couple of deals in Omaha, and they were very successful. So it doesn't tell you where not to go. It just tells you kind of more where to go. And if you're going to go with one of those, kind of bottom states or bottom markets, then you better have a good story.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Hannah, you want to wrap this up?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been great to spend some time with you guys, and I think our listeners are going to really enjoy the story. I love that story of John and Paul starting so young, and that was 40 years ago. And hearing about your company culture and having the opportunity to experience it has been really great. So we're excited to watch you guys continue to grow and execute. And remember what George always says: you're only as good as your next deal. So thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. We're your biggest fans and love watching you be successful. So and appreciate being a part of it whenever we can be.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay in the loop by hitting that subscribe button and check the show notes for additional resources.